Hey guys, NCWQ, and I have an article. Washington scientists study silent quakes to possibly track bigger earthquakes. Collectively, the tiny earthquakes move enough to slightly change the surface of the earth near them. This is coming from King 5. Washington. A swarm of thousands of tiny earthquakes deep under western Washington, Oregon, and British Columbia started again. You won't feel these particular quakes because they are happening 40 to 60 miles deep, as it is believed that the lower slab of the oceanic Juan de Fuca plate becomes stretched and pliable as it's heated and melted back into the Earth's mantle. So you can see the Juan de Fuca is over here. These have been called silent quakes, which have a deep tremor and slow slip. Collectively, they move enough to slightly change the surface of the earth near them. The tiny epicenters pop as that plate slides. They will last for weeks until the event is over. These silent quakes release the equivalent energy of a magnitude 6 earthquake, which is in the range of the Nisqually earthquake that occurred nearly 20 years ago on the last day of February. The Nisqually earthquake was a magnitude 6.8. Scientists didn't even know these slowly evolving quakes existed 20 years ago. Maybe 2002-2003, we started realizing that these tremor events take place deep under western Washington, said University of Washington seismologist and professor emeritus Steve Malone. Malone continues to track these events and look at what they could potentially tell us about the giant mega earthquakes that Washington is expected to experience again. These types of silent quakes are now found around the Earth, mostly where crustal plates forming ocean floors are pushed under continental crust. This is true around the Pacific Rim, where the quakes had been discovered a few years earlier in Japan. The violence of these quakes, which can range into the magnitude 9 range, including the Great Tohoku earthquake in March of 2011 in northeastern Japan, triggered a tsunami, the failure of the nuclear power plant, and the loss of more than 15,000 lives. The scientific term for this crustal collision is called subduction. However, if the lower end of the plates move quietly and unnoticed, the descending ocean plate is not as pliable as it gets closer to the surface. Usually it is locked, only releasing when enough energy has been built up that friction with the continental plate can't hold it back. How often this lock breaks in a giant quake depends on where you live. The last time it happened under Washington and much of the West Coast was in January of 1700 in what's called the Cascadia subduction zone. The Cascadia subduction zone is down here. I believe that's it in this area. The subduction zone runs from Cape Mendocino, so we'll put in Cape Mendocino on here. And so we're going to put in Cape Mendocino here, and we'll show you where it runs from and to. Cape Mendocino is here, and it runs past Oregon, Washington, and off Vancouver Island, British Columbia. So we'll go up here. So it goes up in this area. So Vancouver Island, we're going to go to Vancouver Island. And that's here. So it runs from here to here. That's the subduction zone. I actually do think these are giving us a window into the part of the Earth we can't get to, said Washington State seismologist Harold Tobin, who also leads the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network at the University of Washington. It's giving us stuff from all the occurrences, the little pops. While most earthquakes are fairly random in time, the tremor runs on a schedule, occurring every 14 months. But could silent quakes or deep tremors indicate that a big earthquake is coming, or at least create a window when it's more likely? One theory is that it could add to the pulling force on the lock plate above it. one day triggering a massive quake. But Tobin said that there has been no real correlation around the world between the deep tremor followed by a massive quake in the subduction zone. After all, it's only been about 20 years since the quakes have even been studied, a blip on geological timescale. Tobin, who is an expert in subduction plates and has also spent a lot of time studying them in Japan, said they could become a predictive tool for telling us when we might expect damaging earthquake in the same geological structure. I'm optimistic that this is where science is heading now, he said. Anyways, you guys, I hope y'all enjoyed this article. I found it interesting and informative. Hope y'all are doing well. Please take good care of yourselves and each other. Much love.